Mute, everybody. Okay. Keep that between us. All right. Looking at the agenda, what I think we should do is, after we approve the minutes, I'd like to flip the agenda. Item 2, we take that up last. Jeff, you and Steve have done some work on that, on complaints that we need to hear about. Items 3 and 4 are just a couple of words on the update from the last meeting, but the main item is this item 5 that we'd like to talk about and like to get everybody's comments on and talk about how we're going to move forward. So if everybody's had a chance to review the minutes, do I have a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting?
Motion.
Okay, I've got
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Steve and Todd. Okay, all those in favor? Okay, it's unanimous. Let me back up 2 minutes and say that we're all here at the start of the meeting except for Barton. And we have Jeff Harbaugh from the Burien Airport Advisory Committee here observing our meeting. And Jeff and I have been trading places. I go to his meetings and he comes to our meetings. So we're trying to keep the channels open here. So item 5, we're talking about, want to frame this, what we're trying to do here. The airport, try to keep everything separate. There's the START committee, Sea-Tac Area Roundtable. The City Council appoints 2 citizen representatives to the START. And then we've created an additional body, the Airport Advisory Committee, and the council has appointed us to be on that committee. So it's a little hard to keep, there's a lot of overlap, so it's a little hard to kind of keep it straight, you know, what hat are we wearing? Are we the AAC or are we the START, the community reps to the START? So what's been going on is at the START meetings, the community representatives there from Burien and myself and Barton, and in some cases we've had some input from Sea-Tac, but over the last year and a half this has sort of gradually come to a head, and so we've gotten together. There was, I think, 6 of us at the last meeting. We're all the reps from Burien, the reps from Des Moines, and the reps from Sea-Tac, one of the reps from Sea-Tac, and maybe, Moira from Normandy Park was there. And we came up with this document about how we would like to see START reorganized. And based on, and what really kicked the conversation off was our introduction to the roundtable of roundtables, and we could go out and see how other STARTs operated and how they were organized. So that sort of was a catalyst for us to get together and start talking about what could we do to make the roundtable at least more responsive, or make it larger, cover more area, and have more people at the table, especially people that had some capacity to make decisions, so that information could go back from the roundtable to other bodies like the county council or to city councils or to the state legislature, and make more and more people aware of what the airport cities need. So the first thing I'd like to do is talk about the document itself and get your input on that, the draft working document for reorganization of START. And
so let's hold that for START. Let's just talk about the proposed additional work plan element, because we're expecting to hopefully take this work plan to council before our next meeting. So we want to make sure that everyone's comfortable with what your work plan states for what Joe's taking to council to get the work plan updated to include the START reorganization. So the question is there any concerns, I think, with the language that's in your packet under proposed additional work plan element?
And we will have one more meeting on the June 8th.
It just won't be before the packets do.
The packets not good. Okay.
Yes.
So we will have one more chance to talk about the presentation, but basically the packet has to be put together.
Correct. The report and any PowerPoint needs to be in by the 1st.
Okay. So any comments about the proposal for essentially what we're gonna be doing is we're gonna be, going to council and say, hey, here's our work plan, we're proposing this additional element be added to it with your approval. So, any comments, questions, concerns, additions, subtractions?
No, it's what we talked about being more, getting ideas from other airports.
Jeff?
And the additional element, is that in this discussion right now?
Yeah.
For additional?
Yeah, right. And remember, at the last meeting, we decided we're not gonna delete any of the elements that we have in the plan now, because they may be useful in the future, but we were gonna add this one element.
Yes, I think that interactions with the other roundtables, in any reasonable form and we're gonna find out what the best ways are to do that. And then bring that back for additional ideas about things that we might be able to implement with them and specific to helping Des Moines move on with their agendas for our residents. So I think this is a good addition. And we haven't fleshed it all out yet, what all that means.
Right.
But we need to start doing something.
Okay. Todd?
I don't think I have anything to add here. That sounds good. I missed last week, or last month, so.
Okay, so do we need a motion to approve this?
Yes, the only additional thing I would say is when we were doing this draft, I missed the second bullet point under 2, and I'd like to make some minor amendments to remove the eminent domain language in there when we go back to council, since we're going back anyway. So we'd keep the spirit of research additional mitigation measures in addition to sound insulation to help, make uses that can, compatible uses that can tolerate higher noise volumes and make additional mitigation recommendations. So that's my recommended change on that second bullet point under 2.
Okay.
So just removing the term eminent domain from your guys' purview.
The motion should be to approve the proposed additional work plan element, or to approve the additional work plan element.
Yes.
Be taken to, and in addition to that, the rewording of bullet point number 2 under 2 as suggested.
Thank you.
So,
Motion? Yep.
okay, got a motion from Todd. Do we have a second?
Second.
Steve, second. Okay, moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
Should we do those as 2 separate motions?
You don't need to.
Okay, cool.
You don't need to.
Okay.
Okay, seeing no further discussion, all those in favor? Aye.
Yep.
Okay, all right. Okay, so the second part of this was, I wanted to talk about how we are going to present this to the city council. So essentially, we're going to go to them and say, hey, we don't like the way START is organized. We've been able to, because of we've got this knowledge about the other roundtables around the country, especially in that top tier of airports where there's lots of impacts. And we've come up with this document. I should say, the START community reps have come up with this document, and they've asked us as a committee to take a look at this and then to work on study this issue and kind of close the loop and get information back to the community reps on what we think would work in terms of reorganizing START. So there's a basic document here that's in front of us. So you can see the draft working document. Has everybody had a chance to read through that? So I need some ideas about how we want to go about I think it's important that oh, hey, Barton's here. Okay. Oh, no worries. We're just getting started on the discussion on the draft. We've approved the motion to add the language for the additional work plan, or additional language to our work plan. Now we're basically talking about the draft that we've received from you and I brought back to this committee. So I'm thinking that, we're asking the way I see it in my mind, framing the question is that, hey, we've had a chance to go out there and look at other airports. And while every airport is certainly unique, we can put them into kind of baskets and talk about the different types of airports and some of the constraints that are associated with those different types of airports. And then talk about our airport and what our constraints are here and why we think, why we're saying in our draft document that we're basically saying we no longer have any expectation of reducing noise, particle pollutions, or the number of operations at SEA, and we need to explain to the council why we feel that way. And so I think that's why we need to frame it in terms of what's going on out there with other airports. Maybe have some PowerPoint slides. Say, okay, here's why we think that we're locked into this situation. Jeff, I know that you've spoken about before about some of your reservations about how, about their projections for total operations as time goes out, as time goes on.
Are you looking at me?
No, I'm talking. Okay. I'm sorry, it's Jeff. Yeah. So I don't know. Do you have any? I'd like to hear from you on that aspect of it, because we're making a pretty big stipulation there.
I think we should press on about the estimates to make sure that everybody understands how the different. There are several different organizations. They've all made different ranges of growth. It's pretty clear that no matter, they're all increasing to some extent, right? But the range can be quite broad, and it would be nice to press them on what the numbers look like now, and include that in some discussions, just to stay current about what some of the impacts will be as capacity continues to increase, and what some of the baseline ideas around that would be. There are also issues about some of the things that we don't get from START in its current form. We don't get a lot of feedback about complaints. I don't hear feedback about what the community is getting back from the complaints. There's a broad, thousands of complaints. How many are being responded to by the FAA? How many are being responded to by the port? What kind of feedback are they providing our community? And while they may not give you specifics, it would be nice to know what, the bigger picture about, it's just not a big repository where all the complaints go, but also needs to be more clear about what we're doing to provide feedback for them. And so the current organization doesn't allow for that range right now, but I think it would if the audience, if the people participating had a broader level of participation across the different organizations that we represent. So that's why we're suggesting broadening that a bit, so that we can get things like that addressed and get it onto the agenda, where we don't seem to have all the we don't have all the tools to make things hit the agenda in its current form. In its current form, we'd like to equalize that, make it a little more democratic.
I tried to at the last START meeting. There was basically the presentation of the last START meeting, as they were just going back over their projections and where they got their numbers and how they got their numbers. And I was specifically talking about traffic, but I was trying to challenge their night. I say, well, what happens if it's way worse? I mean, we get out. How do we deal with that if it's?
Because all they're doing is they're going to adjust the signalization of the interstate.
Yeah, right, that's what
They're
I.
not really talking about the volume.
Yeah.
Well, they're not even talking about traffic volume outside the airport.
That's
No,
right.
Oh, wow.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so, but, they fended me off right away. I mean, they with a, fairly, remember Steve responded, and, hey, they've got some methodology that they're very competent methodology, it sounds like, and they're very confident in their analysis, and they're sticking by their numbers,
Well,
so
and
I don't.
that's fine as long as, any analysis needs to have the exceptions, right? So that, just, it seems to me like they like to throw out a lot of numbers, but what's the methodology around it? It's like, what's the I guess, what's the margin of error,
Yeah.
right? So just like any kind of forecast, there's a margin of error that you can kind of look at what that range is really going to be.
Right. Well, again, if you loop it back to what we're saying here, our assumptions, our working assumptions, is we're pretty, we're kind of chiseling that in stone. We're saying, hey, we think you're right. It's going to be, your numbers are, it's going to increase, and we don't need to talk about that anymore. We need to start talking about mitigation.
So what?
Right.
Yeah. So,
Particularly in the worst, particularly in the upper bounds of what the increased local traffic, increased volumes, and increased capacity. If it results in if all this the additional concourses and taxiways, some of the new automation coming to the airport, all are result in end up being in the very high range. What are our mitigations right now to take care of that? That's what should be discussed. Not the lowest case numbers, but the worst case numbers. Worst in the sense for us.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you're simply saying we're not challenging airport growth.
Yeah.
But let's talk about and that's really what the focus should be. How do we mitigate these externalities that affect everything from traffic quality of life to property values?
And that's where we would push towards making sure that we have the right mitigation and the right funding to support that mitigation, and it's recognized early on now. It should have been recognized a long time ago.
Well, that was the point I think I was trying to make with their staff, was that what happened, I mean, we're talking about, this is 2026, and you're talking about 2037, 10 years down the road. So is everything that's in the SEPA, is that just like carved in stone, and in 2037 things are a whole lot worse, and we go back to it and say, gee, this is a lot worse than you said it was going to be. Hey, you agreed to it, so you see, how does that work? That's what I was trying to get across to them, was is this discussion closed when SEPA is approved, or is there some mechanism out there to reopen this discussion if things are quite a bit different? And then maybe, well, on the downside, if the traffic was, the total total passenger count was less and the operations were less, I mean, they've got other problems to worry about, and then we're probably not worried about that. But if it's a lot more, what do we do? So how do we deal with that? And then how do we check in, as it seemed to me like that was the thing that was kind of missing with the third runway, was that we got to the end, they said, oh, okay, we're going to build a runway, and we said, okay, we give up, build a runway. And then there was I didn't hear anything more about it, and that might be my fault because I just wasn't paying attention, but nobody came along and said, 5 years into it, say by 2013, they did, hey, we're actually, we told you we were only going to use this in very specific situations, but oh gosh darn it, we
grew too much.
Yeah, we grew, we're way over what we thought, and now we're using it all the time. I don't remember having that discussion. So is there, again, once we sign off on the SEPA, once the SEPA is adopted,
or does there have to be a mechanism written into SEPA saying there's a reevaluation?
I believe there has to be a mechanism. What should have happened, again, I wasn't here, but if there was it in the environmental document on the third runway that it would only be used a certain way, or was that just what they verbally said, in which case the comments in the thing should have said that it should incorporate those
Yeah,
restrictions.
I don't know the right,
But,
legal language to trigger those thresholds, but we should think about, folks that understand how to do that, make sure that they are engaged in addressing that.
Yeah.
right, so you're gonna wanna look through those kinds of things when the SEPA comes out. If it says it's only using something during a certain period of time or some other way, and make sure that the comment associated with it is that there are true restrictions somewhere on that, and that a change in operations would need to be evaluated separately, and that would be a comment you would put in the SEPA.
I don't think the language is in SEPA for any of that. In fact, it doesn't address those type of things at all. It's a
Yeah.
project list.
Yeah.
And,
Right.
And following the project list
But,
for.
but the study should be based on something, especially on a runway. If it's being based on a runway not being used full-time, then that should have been a comment that said, no, this environmental document, if there's no restriction on the actual time of use on it, then the environmental review should be based on full use of this runway.
Yeah.
So the point is that the SEPA document comes down and it's approved, and they're their own SEPA official, right? So once they've addressed all the comments, and then they can issue the, what is
The
that?
final EIS.
Yeah, the final determination of.
Yeah, the final EIS and their determination, right?
Okay, and then it goes back to their board, right? And the board says, okay, here it is, it looks like our SEPA is all signed, sealed, and delivered. We authorize you guys to go ahead with all these projects.
Correct.
So that's the point where everything just gets chiseled in stone,
Unless there's
language in there that says.
or there's an appeal on the
Oh, okay, yeah.
environmental document
Yeah.
or other.
But once, the point I'm trying to make is, we've got these projections, we have, you know, I have no reason to doubt them. I mean, they sound super confident that they've had this huge project, their methodology, they can talk about it for 10 minutes straight, I don't understand it, but they sound very confident, and I don't have any reason to doubt that. But what if it's a lot more? How do we deal with that? So what I'm trying to get out of the group here is the wording in this bullet point okay?
Yes.
That's our first assumption. Yeah.
Who monitors all the usage and all that kind of stuff in the environmental? Is it just the port, do they self-monitor?
Well, yeah, exactly.
Is there no
And
third
then-
party that does it?
Yeah, and then they bring us
And
the
then they
reports
report,
to
and
the
then
start,
they
and
bring
they'll
the
tell
report.
you the operations and the passenger count and.
And then
and
does START
noise.
have any power to change anything, or are they just an advisory board?
They're just they're not even advisory.
So
Not even
who are the
advisory?
advisory?
They're just
I
a
don't think there's
listening
any
board?
official
Yeah,
advisory.
they're a receiving board.
A receiving
We
board,
receive the
okay.
information and take it back to our communities. That's basically what we do.
Yeah.
So,
Now, there are starts that are, like, review, like, I learned, that was one of the things I learned at the conference I went to, is there's at least one start out there that has, or that it's required for certain procedures to go through start for comment or recommendation before procedures change, but that was built out of a whole different process, a whole different reason that start was created, and, and where that came out of, but there's no FAA requirement or port requirement for it to go through the start, anything that they do, is my understanding.
Yeah, you're getting feedback about internal processes. The port is running many of them themselves, and they have to legally do some of these things and other things they're doing just to keep track of things as they need to, like the noise that they're doing. Have we talked about, so in order for us to get the most buy-in for the change and start, I know we've been discussing the other communities. Are you prepared to talk about that, about our collaboration with Des Moines and Sea-Tac? That we have been in collaboration discussions with them. I think you should emphasize that.
in the presentation?
Yes.
Yeah, and we're thinking that, however long it takes to get there, we need to get Des Moines, Burien, Sea-Tac, and at these 4 city councils to say, yes, go for it. We agree with it, yeah. At the very least, it would be nice to get Federal Way. We're not gonna get Normandy Park, so.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't think,
Yeah.
no, I I don't think we'll get nowhere quick. But, so,
Why is that?
okay, they, I think can you give us, Jeff, can you?
Normandy Park has said pretty clearly, not from me directly, so this is secondhand, that their issues were all about water pollution. That those issues were resolved for the port, so they don't feel the same concern that we feel.
Yeah. Yeah, they just aren't in the, they're not anywhere close to the runways. They don't feel the need to.
So my suggestion, if we're talking about the presentation to council, is obviously the primary piece should be the amendment to the work plan. And then what I hear you're trying to say is you're asking this committee whether you want to also present as a rep the target to get a head nod on whether this is this approach is okay for you to continue working on among the other cities. That's kind of what I'm
Well, I think.
hearing.
I think we have to somehow, give them this document.
Okay.
And say, okay, here's what we got back from the community reps to start. And here's, we have to somehow make the connection between, we're asking you to add this to our work plan. We have to come back and say, what we're actually trying to do with that authorization.
Yeah, I think there's gonna be, there's two different points now where you're asking, in a sense, a head nod that they're comfortable with this approach before you then, once you get everything in line, go for a formal recommendation or a formal letter from them to address START. So you would, my guess would be the way to do this, although it's within, I don't know, it's hard because you're really working this through as a START representative with START, which is in your work plan and part of the resolution that created the committee that says to help be your START reps. So I think it's a mix of, if you end up wanting support for council on the changes, then you would go back to council and make a formal recommendation asking for their support or asking them to sign on to a support letter for the changes that once you've finalized what you want to request. So now I would think that the meeting that's next month would just be purely, hey, we want to add this to our work plan. It's come up through as a START representative. We want to do more work as a whole committee. Here's the draft here's the draft we have. We want to make sure that council's generally supportive of this direction we're going as we continue to work with other airport committees and other START community representatives to make a proposal to amend the START organization.
We should essentially present this draft document that we got from the reps as, here's some of the things that we want to talk about. Here's some of the issues that we want to discuss among the START representatives and
as a committee.
As a committee, here's some of the things that we want to discuss with START.
Yes.
So when you send the community reps to START, here's what we want to talk to them about.
Yep.
And
agree.
Just bullet point those and just say.
Some structural changes. There's some procedural changes.
Yes.
We may not get everything we want.
No.
And we may not have the support of the port on many of these things.
Oh, sure, yeah.
And I expect there will be some, perhaps some give and take, but we may get someplace on
Sure.
For it to be more responsive in some way, whether that is some additional folks that represent our border community and or additional procedural changes that might be able to be made within the current organization, and then we don't know where that's going to go. But that's kind of, we're asking permission to do that kind of thing, to start talking about that so it can be more effective.
So we start our presentation by talking about the wording we'd like to add to our work plan.
Correct.
And then we say, and here, if you authorize us to go forward with this, here's some of the things we'd like to talk about.
Yes.
And the mechanism is our community reps are going to go to START, and they're going to band together with the other community reps, and they're going to start talking about these issues to see what we can get done.
And the key one being mitigation.
Yeah.
And the kind of compensation or funding that's going to require, because we're not going to stop anything. This isn't like third runway where there might have been a time when that got denied. We're not going to stop that. We're not going to stop what's going on, but the fact is, there's gonna be this incredible impact
Mhm.
on the community.
Mhm.
It's bad now, and it's only
Yeah.
gonna get worse.
Worse.
And the only way that,
Yeah.
to be fair, to have environmental
Yeah.
justice is to
Mhm.
find a way to,
Yeah.
funding for some compensation, and
Mhm.
then, it's up to the city
Yeah,
council to
sure.
figure out where that goes, how that's
Okay.
done.
The-
Back through Runaway, they built new schools.
Mhm.
you
Yeah.
know.
Mhm.
That's great,
Yeah.
a lot of that got done, great.
Mhm.
What,
Yeah.
what are we gonna do now?
Okay, the only issue with the mitigation, and we definitely need to mention that, we need to, that needs to be right up front. But we also have to be careful that, remember, we've got another whole process going on with the ILA cities, Berrien, Sea-Tac, and us,
Mhm.
sorry, the three,
Yeah.
and so mitigation and the exact form that would
Maybe we should
take,
use
it's a.
different
The lawyers, yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, we can mention mitigation, but, we don't wanna get too far into the discussion of how that's gonna look or what form that's gonna take, because this other group is discussing that, they're negotiating that with the port
Yeah,
as we
yeah.
speak, and
Mm.
so, they've got kind of a
Okay.
cone of silence that they need to maintain. So we just need to make sure we don't
Okay.
step on that, any of their efforts, by, saying something that is in contradiction to what's being said
So let's
in those
keep
private.
the compensation then.
Yeah, just say,
Yeah.
we just say, we need some help, well, we just need to talk about that.
Yeah.
So what I'm hearing is, in terms of the presentation, we'll, bring the additional wording out, we'll start with that, and then we'll pivot to, here's what and with that, here's what we'd like to accomplish, and the reason why we think we need to do this, the reason why we're stipulating these things, why we're saying what are, stipulating these assumptions, is, and at that point, we need to talk about our specific airport and why we're never gonna get changes, we're not gonna reroute the traffic patterns, we're not gonna get,
But one thing I would suggest, because I was looking at how this is worded, right? We no longer have any expectation.
Yeah.
I don't think we want to close ourselves off either, because that seems to be a very closed statement. I think it needs to be something more like, we assume
Yeah.
we're not gonna be able to have any effect on this.
Okay. That's a good point.
And that way, we can go at it as, oh, do we have an opportunity to hold the line?
Yeah.
Right, but we know we're not gonna stop the growth, we know all that, but I think we should make it not sound like it's something that's totally closed.
Okay, so we need to soften that up just a little bit.
Yeah, and just
Okay.
say, we assume, the assumption is that it's gonna continue to grow, but, not to say that we don't have any expectations of not facing, because it leaves us open to having, to be able to have an effect on that.
Yeah.
If something comes up that allows us to do that.
Yeah, I agree. There have been some, it's difficult to say that we don't assume we can do anything about pollution.
Mhm.
But there have been successes with monitoring.
Yeah.
And so that's been very successful, and that adds to the body of evidence specific to Sea-Tac, and then
Yeah.
evidence that can be brought forward through, both legally and procedurally, and hopefully that affects national policy. I mean, really, these are become national issues very quickly.
Yeah.
And the and federal precedence laws prevent us from moving forward on many things here, in reducing night flights and things like that. There's places, there's pockets where we can make a difference there, right?
I wanna do a time check. I think we have the conversation. You need to go to council. I think there still needs to be more, once it's added to your work plan, specifically in furthering this idea and what you guys want to do with the start. But I know you guys wanted to discuss possibly the complaints,
Yeah.
and I wanna make sure we have enough
All right.
time
Let's,
for comments and complaints, so.
So you're gonna start working on the
Yes.
presentation piece,
Yep.
and we'll share that
Okay.
among everybody and
Okay.
fine tune that.
Because I'm gonna
Before we get too far in the presentation.
Yeah, it needs to be
That-
done by
that
the end of the
meeting-
month,
Yeah, it's been
so.
moved to June, right? June
Yes, but
11th?
by
Okay.
the end of the month is when everything needs to be in the
Okay.
packet,
Yeah.
prepared for the packet.
Yeah, because I'm gonna be gone the end of the month, because I'm gonna be in North Dakota, so we'll have to have it, my part will have to be, okay, so I will be reaching out to all of you, though, to, with, kind of some help in these certain areas. but I think to wrap it up is, I wanna leave the council with this is not just about SAM. This whole idea of reorganizing, START is not just about SAM. This is about having an effective, ongoing organization that can deal with the issues that come up over the next decade as this whole thing rolls out. It's not gonna stop with the SEPA and the port approving the projects. There's gonna be a lot more discussions, and we just have to have an organization that is more effective, more responsive, and more accountable to us as voters, as citizens. So I wanna leave them with that. This isn't just about a SAMP thing, this is about the future, really. Okay, any other discussion, further discussion? Okay, two quick things, and we've kind of touched on these, the last START meeting, again, it was just about, they were just going over how they came up with their numbers, and we talked about that quite a bit. And then they also talked about, gave us an update on the Sustainable Master Plan, and the discussion there was they rolled out their schedule for public meetings and how they were gonna do that. The feedback that we gave them was not enough, there's not enough meetings, there's not enough time, this is for a project of this magnitude, you gotta do a better job of getting out there and getting, contacting the public and getting the feedback from the public, so.
Wasn't there a comment to the effect that you can't just submit questions and that the give and take and the ability to ask the uncomfortable questions and get a response needs to be there.
Yeah, and I think just the general tone of the whole discussion was, I don't think anybody, any of the citizen reps there thought that it was enough. I mean, it was just too bare bones, and we wanted, essentially, and then there was, in the off months, we have the work plan, the working groups, the noise and the policy working groups, and I suggested, I said, hey, let's put those aside, their work will be there for us to talk about later, and let's have another full body meeting and talk about the rollout and the schedule of events and things like that. I haven't heard a word about that, but I noticed that they haven't scheduled the work group meetings, so.
And again, all those sub-meetings, I've been, trying to go to both sides of it, and it's coming on, and it's a reporting.
Yeah,
That's all. It's not a conversation.
Yeah, we could get that a month later and do a catch-up meeting, it's fine.
People reading slides, right? Send me the deck.
So anyway, that's the update on 2 and 3, and we had, or 3 and 4, on 2, we had, why don't you start, Steve, with, you guys did quite a bit of work on analyzing our volume of complaints, which was a significant number of complaints. So why don't you tell us what you found out, and then Jeff, you can kind of follow up with that.
Yeah, so, under a public records request, we've got like a number of years worth of basically the logs of what people, not only just what they've filled out in that form on the website, but also voicemails as well. People have called in, because if you look at the comments section, a lot of them are basically transcripts of the voicemail that they left. So it's a combination of both. And it was for zip codes 98198 and 98148. So that's mostly Des Moines, but that also is a little bit outside of Des Moines as well, because there's some of that bleeds over into Sea-Tac and Burien as well. So I looked at all I downloaded all the entries from January of 2025 to March of this year. So that's the most available. That was the most available, most recent data that they had. So January 25. So you put all that together, and there were over 48,000 individual entries. Sounds like a lot, right? Oh wow, a lot of. But 40,000 of those 48,000 came from 3 people. Came from 3 people. One.
You have a
Well,
Dial on the you
so
know,
like one person had,
redial it.
one person had like 25,000 entries, another person had 15,000 entries, another person had 5,000 entries, and there were a number of other people out there that had hundreds of entries. So when you boil that down to individual addresses, it was 128 individual addresses. And then Jeff took that and plotted it on a map. When you look at the comments, not all the comment, not every time did it have a comment field, but you could tell some of these high volume people, they every night they're there every time an airplane came over, for a period of time.
Wait a minute, do your math.
Yeah, and that was, someone would say that was 70 decibels, and that, this was over this amount, and so I'm curious about if the port is responding to these people. I have a feeling that they're just gathering the information, because this one person who did the 5,000, they posted consistently from February of 2025 to January of 2026. They were getting increasingly, judged by their comments, they were getting increasingly angry. F-bombs, threatening the planes riding over their house, threatening to show up at offices, threatening to show up at offices and not to talk, right? And so I was about to say, you just turned it into a federal felony. And so I'm hoping that the port has done that, because there's one thing the person stopped in January. It's like, okay, did the port deal with it, or should we be worried, right? So that's why I brought it up. I actually tagged Catherine on that, and so to bring up to the port. So I don't know if the port is doing anything with them, but just grabbing. Some of the comments also were just people who were like, hey, I want to find out about a port package.
In fact, there were a number of people asking about port packages. Did
Yeah.
they get the current feedback? We owe that to our citizens here in Des Moines to give them the feedback about what and how that process is going to work, has been working. I think that's a respectable thing to do for our folks.
Yeah, and I left it in the data, even though it wasn't a noise complaint per se. If they were asking about port packages, they have concerns about the noise. Right.
What's missing in a lot of these are you make the assumption that people put in complaints, they're going to use Flight View, I think is to go ahead and tell you which plane it is specifically, which flight, like throw in a flight number, and then appropriately one would be able to track that and say, oh my gosh, that does exceed our standard, and we have a Quiet Skies program. It'd be nice to have some feedback. Now that's a lot of work to respond back to. Well, but for only 150 folks, that's not so much work. And specifically when they have very specific complaints about a specific plane flying over that they have some concern about, they should hear back. I mean, that would be rounding out the noise program. I think we owe that to them, particularly if they email us or something. We should give them some level of feedback, and we could do that.
Yeah, and I want to hear from the port. What kind of responses are they sending?
They're the port reps. The START reps. And so you should be able to go to START and say, and to get access to the port, say, what are you doing in terms of feedback? Because that'd be a great thing to show success on feedback as well, not just a big repository of complaints.
Okay, so how do we want to do that? Do we want to?
So let me point out, so I made this request on March 9th, and the specific request is stated as complaints received from the City of Des Moines residents or complaints where the source was in the City of Des Moines within the last 10 years relating to airport operations, including noise and emissions/air quality. They did respond with questions back, which is why I gave them the 2 zip codes, because I don't think they had necessarily a shape file for the city. But I got another email today stating that they're still searching and reviewing for responsive documents and need additional time. They estimate the next installment to come before June 1st. So we may be getting a whole nother set of data. So if you guys want to do something with the data, I want to make you aware that they have not determined that the request is complete. So we could still be getting, whether they have a different tracking for written
Yeah.
notice or something else, I don't know, but so.
Because they got phone calls, they have email, and they have a
The
web
form.
page, and they have an app.
Right, so I'm just letting you know that they have not determined that the full request has been responsive yet to us with what they sent us previously. You have just started with a portion of what they feel is a responsive request to that public records.
But we could
So,
still ask
You,
the
absolutely,
question
I'm
about
just letting
what
you
are
know,
they doing
if you're
with
doing stuff and mapping stuff and being
Yeah.
ready, that you don't have possibly the full data yet.
Okay.
You would think that they'd have a tracking mechanism, yeah, we responded back, or they just.
You would- yeah.
They said, here's 1,000 from the same person, maybe we should send them a response back, or.
Yeah, but
you know,
shouldn't
maybe
they be
it's not
doing that
appropriate.
work and not you?
Well, yeah.
Yes.
That's.
But I think what they're saying is ask at start, how are they responding?
Yeah.
How do they decide who
Yeah.
to respond to? Are they responding to every
And
complaint?
maybe, and if they're not responding, maybe this kind of, starts something, because all I'm doing is just looking at the information they provided us, right?
Okay, two questions. Do we want more data? Apparently.
Well, it's gonna come anyways, 'cause
Whatever
they have
they
to,
have.
the request has already been made, so they're gonna keep contacting me until they feel I get that final letter that says we fulfilled your request.
You two get together and put down in a paragraph what we're asking the port to do.
Yeah.
And we will take that to the next meeting. How's
Yeah.
that? And then we'll get it right the first time. Okay,
Good.
that'd be great. Okay, is that enough of a follow-up, and then we'll just wait for more data to show up and?
Yep.
And there's also a lot of data just online you can download yourself. I mean, and then clearly, every single noise event has been captured by multiple sensors that can be, deeply analyzed.
Yeah.
And I'm not suggesting we do that for every case, but there are certain ones where
Yeah.
if it seems extremely, odd, one can just say, yes, you're right.
Does this say anything about, our citizens' awareness or knowledge or concern about noise? I mean, that we got so few people with so many complaints?
I don't think people
What do-
know
what do
about
you
it,
take
yeah.
away from that?
Like, I don't
I
think the
mean,
average person knows that there's a way to complain about the noise. Like, I
Yeah.
had no idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just, I think these are probably people who have, the ones who are actually saying something about the noise, not just looking for a port package or something, are people who are tuned in, right?
I mean, I think of my neighborhood where I'm on the board and, yes, in fact, most of the noise is made by a few, limited number.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean there isn't a problem.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, and I think there's general, but to Todd's point, I think the procedure, boy, to get online, to call, and particularly if you don't think anything's gonna happen anyways.
Particularly the night flights, if you're complaining about something at, 2, 3 in the morning.
And most of them are complaining
You
about
gotta get to a phone, or, and then you go to Flight View and try to find out the track number. I mean, that's asking a lot of the
Yeah.
folks. And I think people are, perhaps tried it years ago and said, I'm sick of that.
Yeah.
So it's not a reflection, really, of, it's just one slice of reflection.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then you can see some very frustrated folks.
Okay.
Yeah, and so, and like I said, it begs the question, what is the port doing with this? What's the response? And then, once we find that out, if they're like, oh, we do this, and this, I was like, great, what can we do is there something that we can enhance on that? Or, hey guys, you need to be, at least sending these people something saying that you've got their
Of course,
feedback.
they can't really mitigate, other than take a report and, sort of like.
Right.
Yeah.
But
It's not about mitigation.
Yeah, it's not.
It's about having a system where you complain and get no feedback whatsoever.
Yeah.
And I don't even know if that's quite true or not, because
we don't,
know how those
exactly, we
work.
don't know.
Okay, so that's,
Let's find out,
yeah, that's our mission, to find out what they're doing,
Yeah.
and then we'll get more data and.
Right.
Did we
Right, we
implement, when people send an email to us, did we implement a standard way for them to go and complain about it,
So
formally to the FAA?
Yeah, I believe
or-
your guys' response letter included their contact, however, we have not received any complaints
Okay.
since we started that process and had that discussion for that
The
form
form was
letter.
closed,
So yeah, we got that
Right.
form letter that we were gonna send to any complaints that
Yeah.
came to the committee, the form letter that says, hey, we got your complaint, I think it included that, we're gonna discuss it at our next meeting, but no one has done a formal complaint. Honestly, the only is the one we received today, is the only but it's not the same as just
Yeah.
a noise complaint that was meant for that form letter.
And just another little thing, Jeff plotted these down, and I kind of scrolled in, and they're all over the place, but there tends to be there were three clumps, right?
Okay.
North Hill, of course, is what you would expect, right? A smaller clump being around Mount Rainier High School,
Yeah,
which
I see that,
tracks
yeah.
too on the hill and stuff, and then a smaller clump just south of downtown. So
Tenth Avenue, oh, yeah.
down if you're going down Marine View
Yeah,
Drive.
sure.
So not even quite Zenith. I mean,
Yeah.
right on the
Yeah,
edge
yeah.
of downtown,
Sure.
south of downtown. So and then everything else is just
Yeah,
all over the place. Yeah.
Okay, all right, so we've got some plan for that. Okay, two more quick things. We got this letter from Sea-Tac Noise Information, the website. I've had a chance to read through it, but not in depth or really had a chance to think about it. My first reaction is it's a very serious letter with I think some important points that we should think about and discuss. Even I think we should respond to it with it's addressed to us, so I think we should and the city manager, so we should respond to it. As in the tone it was presented to us, and even if it takes another meeting where we just get together and talk about this specifically. I don't know how you guys feel about that, but I think it's probably an hour discussion easily.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we would like, I don't know if we can do
Yeah,
that or not. But
we can do, we can look at the schedule available for meetings, for a special meeting, and then put out a poll to see what works
okay.
for
What do
everyone.
you guys
So
want to
I
do
will-
something like that? And
Yeah, 'cause I think
If you guys want to do that, then I can look into
allow
it.
people to have
Really
time
good-
to go through it.
There's
Yeah.
really good points
Yeah.
about focus areas and historical
Yeah,
perspective.
sure.
That affects both our work plan and gives us ideas about how to move forward and focus on. And then there's some things that I think are effective for Des Moines that we'd like to respond back to.
Yeah.
Okay, so you'll give us a couple of
We'll
dates?
chat.
Okay,
Yeah.
and then we'll come up with a date to,
Yeah.
so hate to add that to it, but I think it's important that we respond to that.
Yeah, no, it's a thoughtful note.
Yeah.
Give us time to run through it and do it. Yeah.
It might be helpful at the meeting if someone does take a crack first at a response, so that you then have something to base the discussion off of. So if one person takes
Yeah.
the lead in drafting something, because I found it's much easier to have a starting point to amend language or add paragraphs and stuff than have nothing and try and get it done in an hour would maybe be hard. So.
Okay, well, I'll send out an email and we'll figure out how we're gonna put that together, get some kind of a draft going.
Okay.
Okay, one last thing, and I got to thinking about this because in those start meetings, I always think about a question after it's over, but what I thought I'd do is I had a couple questions that I wanted to take to the next start meeting or get inserted in the process somehow, but I was thinking that maybe you all of you had questions. And so I was thinking that I would send this document around, and then you could add to it your questions, and I'll just keep the master list and keep updating it, sending it around. And here's a couple of things I was thinking about that they talked about, again, going back to the increase in the passenger count and the number of operations. And I was thinking about you, Joe. Does that projection depend on the air traffic control technology being used on the west downwind leg now being installed on SEA's east downwind leg? And what's prompted this whole thing was my wife and we went clear out to Lake Wilderness to do a hike on that trail out there, and what the heck? There's an airplane. I mean, that downwind leg must be 5 or 6 miles wide over there. But judging from what happened when they scrunched that all down to a very narrow lane over Vashon, and now all we got is a bunch of angry people in a lawsuit. So, it,
Yeah, RNAV
yeah,
is allowed,
yeah.
RNAV capability, and, data link,
Yeah.
have allowed them to,
Mhm. Yeah.
allowed them to get very tight on their turns.
Uh-huh.
And so, that allows of a concentration of aircraft
Yeah.
in a particular area. That's some of the, side effects of great efficiency,
Mhm. Yeah.
technology. And they're doing, almost exclusively RNAV approaches,
Yeah.
into Sea-Tac, and they're always on ILS
Yeah.
coming in. And so they go from,
Mhm.
and they are in constant automatic control, but they, cockpit data link.
Yeah.
And so that allows them to really coordinate a tight turn.
Mhm.
And that's what you notice,
Yeah.
right? And it all gets funneled in really
Yeah.
fast.
Mhm.
It
Yeah.
used to be, spread out. I think, this is not,
Well,
it's not unknown. It's been very well documented that,
But
these kind of things happen all over the country.
I was thinking about, well, why, why would we want the county supervisor from Auburn, or the Kent, East Hill, or Renton Highlands? Well, if this is gonna happen to them in 10 years, the same thing that's happened to Vashon, has anybody talked to them about that? And now, I mean, when we, 30 years ago, that was just a collection of 5-acre llama farms, and now it's one of the most densely populated areas in South King County. So anyway, that's kind of what I'm getting at, is that there's a lot of things that we talk about, and I want to try to get it formulated down into questions that we can take back to start during this whole process. But and another one was, if you look at COG's report, their annual report from last November, they said that they were meeting up at Payne Field in Everett, and the staff there and the leadership there said that by 2040 they're going to be doing 6 million enplanements, 6 million passengers a year. Well, 6 million that's a significant amount of money, or of passengers. Is that reflected in the projection for Sea-Tac? Does that cannibalize see what I mean? Here they're saying we're going to do 70. Is it 70 minus 6? Or have you accounted for the growth at Payne Field? Anyway, you get the idea. I think there's questions out there that we need to get to them, but I just can't. I don't think of them in the heat of the moment when I'm trying to think of something snarky to say.
Well, again, that's the problem with the Zoom format.
Yeah.
If you were sitting across the table, you could interrupt like I was.
Okay, I'm going to send this to all of you, and then add your questions, and let's just keep a running total of them, so we can.
When's your next start meeting?
Well, they haven't told us.
Oh.
We made them mad, I guess, or something. So, maybe I should have kept quiet.
There are some questions for start about how they're going to, how are they engaging in a deep way, in a productive way, at the national level on Part 150 development. And we clearly have some of the best data monitoring, for pollution particularly, and we have some great noise monitoring. I mean, all that information should be being.
Yeah.
We should be deeply involved in getting that up to DC. So that the people that are working on new law, we really need that for long-term solutions. Really, the things we really need to be taken care of won't be changed without airline redesign and Part 150 discussions. So that there could be some law that might be changed.
I'll just.
Go to the order.
Kind of an aside, go to the order. I'm in the downtown Seattle Rotary Club, and I went up to program chair, and I said, when was the last time we had somebody from the port here? And he said, well, I don't know, we haven't. So I said, we got a new director, this Ryan Calkins. I said, he went to my alma mater, and we're trying to, I think we could invite him for, to come and speak, and, and so anyway, so I first floated that through our start people. And they said, well, what a great idea. We'd be great. We'd love to have whoever the port director is.
Yeah.
Said, no, we don't want the port director. We want the chair of the port.
Oh, okay.
And so we kind of raised it up, and they said, well, okay, so they're trying to get a date. It'll be sometime in the fall.
Sure.
But it's kind of out there as we build things, that I'd be delighted to have you all come as guests, and we could plant questions.
Yeah, right.
That would be
Yes,
fantastic.
totally
Yeah,
sabotage the
so
meeting.
anyways,
Oh, yeah.
I've been thinking ahead, it might be 6 months, but,
Yeah.
we have that as a way to get their
Yeah.
attention.
Yeah, I wanted to go to the next COG meeting, but I missed it. It was in April in Moses Lake.
Yeah,
but-
Moses Lake.
But I'm trying to get on their list so that. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Stop on
Just-
over.
Just stop by,
Yeah.
yeah.
I have
Okay.
in my calendar the next start meeting for June 24th.
June that sounds about right.
I kinda heard
Yeah.
it, yeah.
Yeah, because in the this month, we were supposed to have the working groups,
Yeah.
and we haven't
Yeah.
heard about that yet, so.
Yeah, but I was
Yeah,
just looking through my calendar and that's what I'm
We
showing.
asked them not to do that and just to set up another meeting, but we're getting we're getting the silent treatment.
Yeah.
So,
Well, anything that cumbersome, and then
Yeah.
it goes through the filter of
Mhm.
uncommon bridges, whoever they are,
Yeah.
I mean, that kind of thing, it's just, wow.
Yeah. Okay,
Thank you.
motion to adjourn. Second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right.
All right, let's get out of here. It's time for dinner.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thanks. Staff for hanging around with us.
Yeah.